where you understand something before I start. The moment I'm about to describe to you sitting across from a woman I had never met before, signing papers that my own children did not know existed, was the most terrifying and the most free I have ever felt in my entire life. And the look on their faces when they found out? Oh, we are absolutely getting to that. Okay, so my name is Renee Castillo, and I have been sitting on this story for almost a year because every time I tried to tell it, I didn't know where to begin. But I think I finally do. It begins with a business, a real one that I built from a folding table in my garage with $200 and a second-hand label printer. Let me back up, way back. My husband, Terrence, and I started our candle and home fragrance business, I called it Soleil and Cedar, out of pure desperation in the year after he lost his job in logistics. We had 3 kids. My oldest, my daughter Vanessa, who was 24 at the time this all went down. My middle child, my son Darius, 22, and my youngest, Pia, 19, still in her first year of community college. Terrence and I had been married for 26 years when he got sick. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Slowly. The kind of slow that gives you time to prepare and somehow still catches you completely off guard. He passed on a Tuesday morning in October, 3 years before any of this happened, with his hand in mine and the bedroom window cracked the way he always liked it, even in cold weather.
We still crack the window. I can't help it. After Terrence died, Soleil and Cedar was the thing that kept me moving. I want to say that plainly. It was not just a business. It was my structure, my reason to get up at 5 a.m. and pour wax and test fragrances and respond to wholesale inquiries and redesign packaging and do all the 10,000 invisible things that keep a small business alive. By the time this story takes place, Soleil and Cedar had grown into something real. I had a small production space I rented on the east side of town, a team of 4 part-time employees, 2 regional boutique contracts, and 1 partnership with a hotel chain that had taken me 3 years of follow-up emails to close. My annual revenue was sitting just under $400,000. I had built that. Me, Terrence's memory, and nobody else. Now, here is where the children come in. Okay, and I want to be fair here because I love my kids, I do, but I also need to be honest with you because that's the whole point of this channel. My 2 oldest had opinions about Soleil and Cedar that they had never been shy about sharing. Vanessa, my daughter, had worked in marketing for a mid-sized company for about 2 years after college, and she had developed, let's call it, a confidence in her opinions about branding and direction that was not always entirely matched by her experience. She had good ideas sometimes, real ones, but she also had a way of presenting those ideas that made you feel like the current version of things was somehow broken, like I'd been doing it wrong the whole time without knowing it. Darius was different. Darius was quieter about it, which somehow made it worse. He'd been working in finance, entry level, an analyst position he didn't love, and he had started talking about family business investment structures and equity conversations in a way that felt like he'd been watching a lot of YouTube videos about generational wealth and had decided Soleil and Cedar was his case study. Where you see the conversation I'm about to describe to you happened at my kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon in April. I had made food. I always make food. Arroz con pollo, fresh tortillas, the cucumber salad Terrence loved. Pia was there, quiet in the corner the way she usually was, scrolling her phone with one eye and watching the room with the other. Vanessa had driven up from her apartment. Darius had come straight from a golf thing, still in his polo. It started casually, the way these things always do. Darius said, "Mom, we've been thinking, and we want to talk to you about the business." I put down my fork. Slowly. "Okay," I said. We think it's time to formalize things, Vanessa said, picking up where he left off like they had rehearsed this, which I later found out they absolutely had. We think it makes sense for us to be brought in as stakeholders. Stakeholders. I looked at my daughter. Stakeholders? I repeated. Equal shares, Darius said. 3 ways. You, me, and Vanessa. Pia, too, if she wants in eventually. It's a family business, Mom. It should be structured like one. I want to stop here because I need you to understand what was not being offered in this conversation. Not labor, not investment capital, not a new contract, not a client relationship, not a skill set the business was missing. What was offered was their last name, which they already shared with me. And in exchange for that, they wanted 1/3 of a business I had built through $400 months and back-to-back trade shows, and years of waking up before sunrise to fill orders. "What would you be contributing?" I asked, very calmly. Too calmly, probably, because I could see Vanessa register it, that careful flatness in my voice. "We'd be involved," she said. "We'd help with decisions, marketing direction, financial planning." "I have a marketing consultant," I said. "I have an accountant." "Mom," Darius leaned forward, "we're your family. Don't you want this to be something we carry forward together?" There it was, the word family, deployed like a key. I looked around my kitchen table, at the food I had made, at my youngest sitting quietly in the corner, saying nothing, at my 2 older children sitting there with rehearsed confidence, asking me to hand over pieces of something I had bled for. "I'll think about it," I said. And I did. For about 48 hours, I genuinely sat with it. I tried to see their version. I tried to imagine what it would look like to bring them in, gradually, meaningfully. I called my friend Lorraine, who has known me since before Terrence, and I talked it through with her for an hour and a half. And then Darius sent the email. Okay, stay with me, because this is where it shifts. The email arrived on a Tuesday night. It was addressed to me, CC'd to Vanessa, and it had an attachment, a 12-page document titled Soleil and Cedar Family Partnership Transition Plan, professionally formatted, color-coded sections, appendices. I opened it. Section 1 was a proposed ownership restructure, equal thirds Vanessa, Darius, me. Section 2 was a proposed leadership transition. Vanessa would take over brand direction. Darius would manage financials. I would move into what they called a founder advisory role. An advisory role in the company I founded. Section 3 was a proposed salary structure. They would each draw salaries. Darius listed his at $92,000, Vanessa at $88,000. Mine was not listed. There was a note that said founder compensation would be revisited in year 2. I closed my laptop. I sat in my kitchen in the dark for a long time. I thought about the folding table in the garage. I thought about the year I worked a part-time catering job on weekends so I could reinvest every dollar the candles made back into the business. I thought about Terrence sitting across from me at this very table, going through wholesale pricing spreadsheets at midnight, squinting at the numbers and saying, "Renee, this is going to be real. I can feel it." I thought about the hotel contract, the 3 years of follow-up emails. And then I thought about the word advisory. I called a business attorney the next morning. Her name was Claudette Marsh, and a woman in my wholesale network had recommended her twice in the past year, each time with the same words. She doesn't panic, she just solves. I drove to her office on a Thursday with a folder of documents, my incorporation papers, my revenue records, and that 12-page PDF Darius had sent me, which I had printed out and highlighted in 3 colors. Claudette read through everything without reacting. When she finished, she looked up at me and said, "What do you want the outcome to be?" And that was the first time in days that I felt like I could breathe. I want to protect what I built, I said. I want to make sure that no matter what happens, no matter what pressure gets applied, nobody can take pieces of this for me without my full, informed, uncoerced consent. Claudette nodded once. Then here is what we are going to do. We restructured the business entity to make any transfer of ownership shares substantially more complex and protected. We established a formal buy-in requirement, meaning that anyone, including my own children, wanted equity in Soleil and Cedar, they would need to contribute documented, verifiable value at a fair market rate. No gifted shares, no family discount. Where you have to establish a business succession document that outlined clearly what would happen to the company if something happened to me, with a designated independent trustee, not a family member, overseeing any transition. I went home. I made dinner. And the following Sunday, I invited Vanessa and Darius back to the table. This time, Pia sat closer to me. I let them talk first. Darius asked if I had reviewed the document. I said yes. Vanessa asked if I had any questions. I said I did. When you listed Darius's salary at $92,000, I said, what was that based on? Silence. And when you moved me to an advisory role, what research did you do on what founders typically retain when they bring in partner-level family members? More silence. And the timeline, I continued. 60 days for a full ownership transition? Who said that? Vanessa started to speak. I raised one hand, gently, not aggressively, and she stopped. I've talked to an attorney, I said, and what I want to tell you both, and I want to say this as your mother, not as a business owner, is that what you sent me was not a proposal. It was a removal plan. And it was built on the assumption that I would be too sentimental or too tired or too much in need of your approval to push back. The look on Darius's face. Mom, Vanessa started. I'm not finished, I said, still calm, still warm. I love you. That has not changed, and the door to this business is not closed to you, but it will never be opened the way you tried to open it. If you want to be part of Soleil and Cedar, you will come in through the front door with skills and time and real contribution, and we will have a proper conversation about what that looks like. But the version where I hand over a third of what I built because you're my children, that version does not exist. Darius pushed back his chair. So you're choosing the business over your family? I looked at him for a long moment. Were you choosing to model something for me, I said. I'm showing you what it looks like to value what you've built and to refuse to let anyone, diminish it because they feel entitled to it. Someday, if you build something real, you will be grateful I showed you this. He left without finishing his plate. Vanessa sat for another few minutes. She was crying quietly. Then she said, very softly, I think we really messed up, Mom. Yeah, I said, you did. The next few months were hard. I won't pretend otherwise. Darius went quiet for almost 3 months, short replies, no visits, that particular silence that only the people you love can create. Vanessa called more than he did, but the calls were stiltish and careful in a way our calls had never been before. Pia, my youngest, who had sat at that table twice and watched everything without saying much, called me one night in July and said, Mom, I want to come work at the shop this summer, for real, like actually work. Can I? I said yes. And get this, she was good, like genuinely, naturally good at it. She had a feel for the customer side of things, an instinct for what people wanted when they came into the production space for tours, and she started managing our small batch seasonal line with almost no direction from me. By August, she had proposed a limited holiday collection, her own concept, her own fragrance combinations, and I told her to run with it. It sold out in 11 days. By autumn, something had shifted in Darius. He called me on a Saturday morning in October and asked if he could come by. I said yes. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table, and he put both hands around a coffee mug, and he looked at the surface of it for a long time before he spoke. I was so focused on what I thought I deserved, he said, that I completely missed what you had actually done. Like, I looked at the numbers and I saw opportunity and I didn't see you. I didn't see what it cost. I didn't say anything. I let him sit with it. Dad would have been ashamed of that email, he said. I had to look out the window for a second after he said that. Yes, I said eventually. He would have. Darius nodded. I want to do this right, if you'll let me, eventually. On your terms. I know, I said, and we'll get there. Vanessa came around in her own way, in her own time. She started asking real questions, not strategic ones, but genuine ones, about the wholesale relationships, about how I had structured the hotel contract, about what I actually needed that I didn't have. And slowly, carefully, we started building something new between us. Soleil and Cedar just crossed $500,000 in annual revenue last spring. Pia is now officially on payroll as our production and events coordinator. And the business? Still mine. Fully, legally, irrevocably mine. Here is what I want you to take from this. The people who love you are not exempt from taking from you. Love and entitlement can live in the same person at the same time, and it is not a contradiction. It is just a truth that most families are too afraid to name out loud. I named it. I did not name it with cruelty. I named it with paperwork and a clear voice and a Sunday afternoon conversation that nobody at that table will ever forget. And the thing is, my relationship with my children is better now. Not because I gave them what they asked for, because I didn't, because I held my ground, and they had to reckon with who they had been in that moment. And that reckoning grew them in ways that my giving in never would have. Where you see the people you love clearly mistaking your generosity for weakness. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be diminished. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone close to you mistake your generosity for weakness? Have you ever had to draw a line with your own family? I want to hear your story because I know I'm not the only one. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Jada's Revenge because we talk about the real things here. The messy, complicated, human things that most people are too polished to say out loud. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.